This story doesn't start with a disappearance. It starts with friendship. 5 men, each one a little different from the rest. One had mild intellectual disabilities, another schizophrenia in remission. One was just shy and quiet, but together they were a team. Locals called them the Yuba Boys. They loved basketball, collected sports cards, and held home tournaments. They all lived with their parents and had small part-time jobs. They were grown men with innocent dreams: pizza, sports, and loyal friends. Gary Mathias, a military veteran recovering from schizophrenia. He had spent time in isolation but found friendship in this group. Jack Hewitt, shy and reserved. Bill Sterling, kind-hearted and deeply religious. Jack Madruga, the driver, calm and dependable. Ted Weiher, the oldest and most caring. February 27, 1978. Evening. The guys were getting ready to drive to a basketball game in a nearby town just to watch and support their favorite team. It was a normal day. Nothing seemed off. Jack Madruga took the car. Gary told his mother he'd be back by morning. One of them even laid out a clean shirt ready for his own game the next day. They were excited, not worried. At a gas station, they bought snacks. 5 men drove into the night and, as it turned out, into the void. Morning comes. Parents wake up and realize their sons never returned. The phone is silent. No one answers. First, no one panics. People think they might have stayed with friends or got delayed. But one day passes, then another. Worry turns to fear. These men never stayed out overnight without letting someone know. Their lives were steady, predictable, but now they had vanished completely, and no one knew that. Days later, police would find their car in a place they had no reason to be. A few days later, the car is found deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains on an isolated, snow-covered forest road, about 70 miles from where the game took place. There were no common routes leading there, not in winter. These roads aren't plowed. Some don't even appear on maps. It wasn't a detour. It was a complete departure from their path, intentional and senseless. The car was parked neatly, no damage, no flat tires, like someone just turned off the engine and walked into the forest. All 5 men gone on foot into the winter wilderness. Everything was left untouched inside. Candy wrappers, a map, a wallet, some change. In the glove box, gas station receipts. No signs of struggle. Doors closed. Keys in the ignition. Windows intact. The car started immediately. It hadn't broken down. It wasn't frozen. It wasn't stuck. But no one tried to drive back. They just walked away. This place wasn't shelter. It was a trap. And somehow they seemed to know that. That road was cold, empty, forgotten. Even loggers didn't go there in winter. No lights, no signs, just snow, trees, and silence. Why did they turn? Who led them there? What were they looking for? Or what were they running from? The nearest sign of life was 20 miles away. No phones, no signal. Night temperatures dropped below 14 degrees Fahrenheit. In the clothes they had, survival was unlikely. This wasn't a mistake. It was something else. March. The snow begins to melt. Searchers return to the woods. And then a discovery. Near a stream 5 kilometers from the car, they find the first bodies. Jack Madruga is lying face up, as if he simply fell asleep. He's still wearing all his clothes. Strangely, his shoes are clean, as if he hadn't walked through snow. Next to him, Bill Sterling. His body is partially decomposed. He's curled up against Jack, a dead man trying to preserve warmth. Or maybe something else, a final gesture of friendship no one will ever explain. Days later, searchers find a Forest Service cabin. The windows are boarded up, snow all around, silence. Inside, the body of Ted Weiher. He's on a bed, carefully wrapped in blankets. His face is gaunt. He'd lived there for a long time, too long. There's food on the table, canned goods, matches, all untouched. He could have survived, but he didn't. Why? Nearby clothes that aren't his. So someone else was there. Gary Mathias was never found. His body wasn't near the others, not in the cabin. He had sturdy army boots. Maybe he made it farther, or escaped altogether. He was considered the most stable, the most prepared. He wasn't afraid of the dark, but he vanished as if he never existed. Gary's mother held on to hope for years, that he'd walked away, that he started over under a new name. But decades passed and nothing. When rescuers entered the cabin, the first thing they noticed was how tidy it was. Food was still there, canned goods, rations, clothes, candles, all untouched. Someone had wrapped Ted Weiher in 5 blankets. He couldn't have done it himself. His hands were frostbitten. So someone else was there, someone who cared, for a while. But why didn't anyone eat? Why didn't they light the heater? Why didn't they go for help? One man's clothes found on another, a watch no one recognized, candles burned but no one was there. Everything pointed to someone else being in those woods. Theories emerged. A wandering killer? A stranger? Maybe even a survivalist hiding in the mountains. But there were no prints, no witnesses, just items, just hints. Maybe the one who was with them disappeared with Gary. Or maybe it wasn't a person at all. Psychologists suggested a shared psychosis. One panicked, led the others. They trusted each other and followed. Cold, fear, disorientation, until things spiraled. But panic is messy. It leaves footprints, chaos. It was quiet, too quiet, like someone had arranged the scene. Maybe they weren't running. Maybe they were following instructions. Police claimed they got lost, got stuck, tried to reach shelter. One died, another stayed with him. The rest kept walking and froze. Sounds logical, until you look at the details. Why wasn't the car stuck? Why no fire? Why does everything feel unreal? Sometimes an official version is just a way to close a file, to avoid thinking about what really happened. Online forums talk about aliens, portals, parallel worlds. Some see links to disappearances in national parks, others to the Dyatlov Pass. Some think they saw something they shouldn't have. Many focus on Gary. He became the symbol of the part we'll never understand. The ghost in this story. What does fear do to the human mind? Kills logic, scrambles memory, makes you walk into darkness if someone says, "Trust me." Maybe they didn't know they'd freeze. Maybe they thought they'd be saved. Maybe they were already trapped before it began. The scariest part of this story isn't that they died. It's how they died. Alone, silent, in a still and foreign forest. Years passed. Parents died. Investigators retired. But the case still haunts those who studied it. Because in this case, there is nothing. And in that nothing, something terrifying hides. Photos, maps, forest, cabin, car, all still there. Just not the boys. You look at that forest, and you wonder what's more terrifying. Nature's wildness, or something else. Sometimes people don't just disappear. Sometimes they become part of something bigger. Something you can't explain, can't catch, can't forget. And you're left with one question. If you had gone with them, how far would you have made it?